He was a high school athlete, class officer, a good kid.
He liked everybody, and I think everybody liked him.
But 30 years ago, someone killed Henry Bedard.
It was, definitely a gruesome scene.
Now, Swampscott police hope this bat can lead them to the killer.
Could this be the killer's calling card?
While Henry Bedard's family just wants answers.
I want to know what transpired up there, what went down, what happened.
Also tonight, leading a risky life on the streets of Worcester.
There is no other way to get money. You have to do what you know.
Now, 3 women are dead, and the survivors worry, is there a serial killer on the loose in central Massachusetts? Unsolved, next on Chronicle.
Just past 3 p.m. on a mild December afternoon in 1974, 15-year-old Henry Bedard walked out of CVS with a roll of 8mm film and a bottle of perfume, a Christmas present for his sister. Bedard headed down Paradise Road, one of the busiest streets in the small town of Swampscott. A few minutes later, he crossed the road in front of Swampscott Police Lieutenant Peter Cassidy.
See by Peter Cassidy. Peter Cassidy stopped and let him cross the road. And Henry waved back.
Henry Bedard then walked up the street and through the DPW yard.
This is the last location that Henry was visually seen by people who knew him. And he was over about here. And he began to have a little bit of a conversation with them. And he held up the bag and said, I guess this means I have to go home and wrap these. They talked a little bit more, and he proceeded to wish them a Merry Christmas.
Henry headed to a wooded area known to local kids as SV, or Swampscott View. As day turned to night and dinner time approached, Henry still wasn't home. His parents grew worried.
He would call otherwise if he wasn't going to be home. We know that.
Henry didn't call.
So 6:30 came, Henry's not home yet, something's wrong, he should be home. 7 o'clock, no Henry. Oh my God. First of all, I called some of his friends, and they didn't see him since school was out. So then I called the police station and I told them, they said, well, we can't do anything about it for 24 hours. I said, fine. So then I called a couple of my friends and we went out searching, looking for him.
Really what we felt was that he had maybe cut through a path or something and fallen and gotten hurt, couldn't move, that kind of thing.
Paul Zucchero was Henry's best friend.
As the evening wore on, of course, and there were no phone calls, and it began to rain, and no one had seen him, that yes, absolutely, that worry took over, and that's when we were out looking for him. We searched everywhere that we thought possible from our standpoint of our age, of where we would be, where we would hang out, the parts or paths or places that he might be, and we searched along with others till about 3 o'clock in the morning, at which point we're all exhausted.
The next day, 10-year-old Cliff Goodman was in the woods behind his house when he made a grim discovery.
My son Cliff was supposed to be home right after school, as he had to go to Hebrew school. And he finally came in screaming, Mama, Mama, you have to come up here.
It was just around the corner of, it was in the bushes, so. And then, yeah, I looked right down and right at it, and it was, definitely a gruesome scene.
I reached down and brushed some leaves off of the head of this person. And I remember thinking that it looked like an old, battered doll.
Henry Bedard, high school athlete and sophomore class representative, was dead. He'd been brutally bludgeoned with a baseball bat, a 31-inch Louisville slugger. The residents of Swampscott were stunned. How could this happen in their close-knit community of 14,000? How could this happen to a good kid like Henry Bedard?
He's a happy kid. He liked everybody, and I think everybody liked him.
I never knew him to be in trouble over and above anything that any average 15-year-old boy would be involved in.
On December 20th, 1974, the Bedard family and 1,500 tearful friends and neighbors packed St. John's Church to say goodbye. The question on everyone's mind, who killed Henry and why? The Swampscott police interviewed over 100 people. Many took lie detector tests. They followed every lead, but police said they had very little to go on. No one had seen anything. But people wanted answers, especially Henry's younger brother, Steve.
I want to know what transpired up there, what went down, what happened. Did he walk in on something? Was it someone he knew and it got out of control? Was it to do with card playing and gambling? Was it to do with a girl?
Then a promising lead in the case. Police determined the distinct marking on the end of the baseball bat was homemade. Could this be the killer's calling card?
Coming up later, trying to catch a predator.
Unfortunately, he may have to kill again before he's apprehended.
Coming up next, the girl he left behind.
I brought him to my 8th grade dance.
And trying to decipher a clue.
If you look at it a certain way, it looks like it could be a Roman numeral. Another way, it could be a letter.
Closed caption funding provided by Liberty Mutual Insurance. It's more than insurance. It's insurance in action.
Both of these cars are renowned for their comfort. But what does the Mercury Grand Marquis driver know that the other doesn't?
How to hold on to a whole trunk load of cash.
One more reason why Grand Marquis is the best value in its class. And here's another. Now get the 2005 Grand Marquis GS starting at $19,790. See your New England Lincoln Mercury dealer today.
Don't start.
It's my life.
Now only in theaters. Discover the most enchanting Pooh movie ever. Critics call it heartwarming. It's irresistible family fun with an unforgettable new character.
Everybody calls me Lumpy.
Disney presents Pooh's Heffalump movie, rated G. Now in theaters.
Number 1 in selection.
Number 1 in underprices. That's us.
The Museum of Science presents larger-than-life images on New England's only IMAX dome screen. The Museum of Science, it's alive. Visit MOS.org for more information.
Discover the secrets of the best Italian chefs. Introducing Barilla Restaurant Creations. 2 jars you blend together for the true Italian restaurant experience at home. Barilla, the choice of Italy.
Well, everybody's been waiting for George's birthday bash, 'cause all the folks around here know we're talking cash, money. That's what you could save. We're talking deals on wheels, but it's over in a flash. So get the one you want, 'cause we're talking cash. You could be saving, but you'll have to dash, 'cause all the folks around here know we're talking cash, money. We're talking cash.
Toyota Savings. That's moving you forward. Spanish captioning underwritten by Hummer. Hummer, like nothing else.
"30 years later, Swampscott police are still trying to draw clues from this cryptic marking on the murder weapon. Lieutenant Peter Cassidy worked on the case in 1974. Now his son Tim leads the investigation.
I remember the day they found him. My father was called into work, and I went up my attic, and from my attic window I could see right to where the crime scene was, and I could see the guys out there all night with flashlights. And like I was 10 years old, I was scared to death.
Cassidy and State Police investigator Tony Lopalato sent the bat to the State Forensic Lab for analysis.
Oh, basically we have a bat with a very interesting inscription on the butt of it. I'm not sure what it is. If you look at it a certain way, it looks like it could be a Roman numeral. Another way, it could be a letter. There have been partial prints. Evidence wasn't handled the same as it is now.
Cassidy and Lo Pilato have been busy pounding the pavement. They've re-interviewed people, investigated new leads, and tracked down those mentioned in anonymous letters sent to police. One of the doors the detectives knocked on was that of Cindy Cavallaro. She was Henry Bedard's girlfriend.
I brought him to my 8th grade dance. So we were close, we talked a lot, and he was more sure of himself. That was probably the only thing that I could understand or try and portray to you that made him different from the other kids. Other than that, he played sports, we did homework, I mean, nothing. There was no drugs, there was no drinking back then.
Over the past 3 decades, just about everyone in this North Shore town has developed a theory as to what may have happened.
My opinion is that he ran into the wrong people at the wrong time, and he got into a situation that obviously escalated, and something happened that triggered someone's rage.
Was it a girl's father? You think about it, a girl's father back then in those days was in his 30s. It wasn't, you know, he was a 35 or 40-year-old man. I mean, I always thought that. Was it a jealous rage of a father and him and a girlfriend meeting up at SV, following them?
Could it have been someone with a crush on Cindy?
There was a group of kids that were mean and that would taunt him if he walked me home from school. It doesn't make sense to me at that age. I mean, someone that had a crush or maybe was jealous, but at 13 and 14, that's not a reason to do anything like that.
Another question frequently asked, did Henry Bedard know his killer?
You want to think it was personal only because when you look at the pictures, it appears it was personal. It doesn't seem it was just something that just came upon. However, there's nothing to indicate that it was personal. Nothing has really come across as being, okay, this is it.
Cindy Cavallaro and Paul Zucchero remember the toll this murder took on the Bedard family, their friends, and the entire town.
We were shocked and stunned. I mean, the thought of this occurring in our world at that time was unfathomable. It just was not something that would happen, could happen. But then it did happen. And people were devastated. His family was devastated. I saw the toll that it took on his family, on his parents at the time.
It was miserable, I know that. I didn't go to work for it. I owned a gas station, but I had a helper that took care of the whole thing for 3 months. I think it was 3 months. I felt in the dumps all the time, wondering why and wondering who. And
we were devastated. We couldn't do anything for ourselves, especially my mother and father. I mean, imagine, you know, they couldn't function normally. I mean, God, my mother was in bed.
Henry Bedard's parents divorced a few years after the murder. The family moved out of Swampscott, away from the nightmare. 30 years later, they and all who knew and loved the fair-haired teenager still hope for answers.
I've gone through all the hurt. It's not going to wipe away the hurt, but it's going to let me know the culprit. And how could he have lived this long knowing that he did this? I just lived with it. He lived for 30 years. My son is buried.
Oh, what an awful story.
It is indeed.
The bat, I take it, is very important.
It's at the crime lab, as we said, Mary. They have new methods now, of course. That mysterious inscription, they hope somebody might recognize that even tonight. And they're sampling DNA and fingerprints and hoping they can perhaps link that with some of the people that they have wondered about all these years.
Still to come, is a predator prowling the streets of Worcester after this?